It's time for another podcast by George. Straight talk, straight from the heartland, that'll have you saying, "By George, I think he's got it." Now, here's George.
Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome on back into another podcast by George as the coronavirus epidemic continues to be a major issue here in the United States. I mean, we started kind of keeping tabs on this months ago. It's still out there. It's spiking in some parts of the country, believe it or not, and some parts of the country are reopening. Now, when this first broke, one of the industries that we talked about, Stephen W. Schmidt and I talked about, the Lucan Endowed Professor at Iowa State University, was the gaming industry, the casinos, and the effect that this has. And one of the reasons that we talked about it, a lot of people don't think of it this way, but it has a huge impact on the national economy. Gaming is a big part of who we are in America, and that's reopening. And here in the heartland, you think, well, okay, George, you're not in Vegas, you're not in Atlantic City. What are you talking about casinos for? Well, we've got one of the jewels of the gaming industry right here in the heartland, basically at the crossroads of I-35 and I-80. It's Prairie Meadows Casino and Racetrack. And I describe Des Moines as an example, as a place that has a lot of really nice minor league things. Well, that racetrack and casino is not minor league. That's major league here, and it's recognized as such really around the world. And I wanted to check in and see how they're going on the reopen, because they've been operating out there for, I don't know, a couple of 3 weeks now. They're getting it going out there again. They've got new restrictions in place, and people are coming back. And I like gaming. I like horse racing. Maybe give you my little personal vignette on. You say, well, what's your gaming experience, George? Well, I love to gamble. The only thing I hate more than I hate to lose, so I don't gamble a lot, but I do go to the horse races, and I really like that in particular. They call it the Sporting Kings. My God, what a great experience that is! You don't have to spend you don't have to spend any money if you don't want to. But I mean, you go out there and you bet a little bit. You can easily control that. It's not going to get away from you. And I really enjoy horse racing, and Prairie Meadows has the best of that. And joining us on the podcast by George live line is Wes Ericke. He's the president and CEO of the Iowa Gaming Association. He's been in that position since 2000, and Wes has got several honors here locally. He's including the Leadership for Iowa Award, the ISAE Distinguished Executive Award. He's also a big guy in the 4-H. He's got that foundation's highest honor, the Meritorious Award. Maybe most importantly, he's a friend of mine. He and I go to the same music venues. He's friends with Bob Pace, whose music you hear on the podcast often, including to open the show a lot of times. And now he's our guest, and I'm glad of it. Wes, welcome to a podcast by George.
Thank you, George. Delighted to be here with you. Thank you so much. And very kind, too kind on that introduction. So thank you for that, too.
No, that's well-deserved. You're doing a great job out there. I don't know, maybe again, because this goes out over the World Wide Web. I got listeners in Switzerland and places. I'm amazed where people listen into this podcast. In a capsule, how do you describe Prairie Meadows?
Well, if I can take maybe just a broader view than that. I mean, the Gaming Association, we represent the 19 commercial casinos in Iowa, including Prairie Meadows. And then so we have premier entertainment destinations throughout the state. And as you said, Prairie Meadows is one of those crown jewels as well. It's not just horse racing. It's not just gaming. It's also lodging and restaurants and concerts when we can get back to that, and a variety of things that are offered every day, which certainly is a major economic impact. And one bigger plug on the entire industry, which Prairie Meadows is certainly an integral part of that. We're about a $1 billion economic impact to the state when you factor in the wages and benefits, the Buy Iowa First program, where we purchase collectively $250 million from Iowa-based companies. We collectively do $90 million in charitable contributions every year to thousands of worthy nonprofit organizations, and certainly the taxes that get paid to the state that go to many visionary purposes. So wanted to kind of give that set for your listeners to kind of know what the gaming industry, to your earlier intro, that we are a major economic impact, a viable part of Iowa's economy, and adding a lot of value to the state's entertainment and tourism industry.
And Prairie Meadows is unique, and that's kind of hard to describe. It's hard for me to understand even, but it's a nonprofit, and it has all of these charitable things going on where they turn the money around and put it right back into the community, right?
That's right. Well, the way they were established, a lot of time, all of the casinos have to have a nonprofit entity as kind of a co-license, a qualified sponsoring organization. Well, in their case, back at the time, Racing Association of Central Iowa, they chose to be the nonprofit that would also be a license to conduct and operate the games. But as a part of that, then they pledged to give a lot more back to the community in the charitable contribution beyond what they need for their expenses and the like. And they talk about an economic force for this community. I mean, there's so many things that wouldn't be here in our Des Moines area if it wasn't for Prairie Meadows, from the Science Center, the library, the Wells Arena, the World Food Prize. There's the list goes on and on. Plus, just a lot of the other nonprofits here that benefit from them greatly.
That's great. And I know we're going to learn some stuff today, Wes. I'm glad to have you on the show. I got to tell you, the most recent experience that I had as a spokesperson for the gaming industry actually was that series of interviews that the mayor of Las Vegas did. That was not too good, Wes. I got to tell you, that gal, I don't know, she's not in the gaming industry. She's the mayor. She doesn't have any direct control over much of anything in the gaming industry in Las Vegas. But my God, I could not figure out what the hell was going on listening to her. If you would kind of tell us about the decision to close, the decision to reopen, and how it's going thus far.
Yeah, so like many businesses, but when you have an entire industry closed, and Prairie Meadows actually was taking that lead voluntarily, like about one day before the governor and the Department of Public Health, determined like on March, I believe 17th, that to close the entire industry, every casino, and we were then closed for 11 weeks. And I think obviously for containing the community spread, and that was important to do. But then how do you reopen these businesses? And quite frankly, the week before that, sports wagering. I mean, any sports. We just had legalized sports wagering last year, and suddenly there is no March Madness. There isn't going to be any opportunities to bet on sports, even with our online wagering. In pro and collegiate sports in America as well as in the UK, nothing. And so it was kind of the joke that you could find maybe some Czechoslovakian, maybe some Belarus soccer, out there to bid on for a while. But with all that, then we really had to focus on, if you're going to reopen, how do you do this with the most protocols and procedures to assure the safety of not only the guests as well as our staff. And so extensive protocols and procedures to put in place. And now that we got a chance to reopen again in early June, I think Prairie Meadows waited till the 15th. But all the casinos are now open. And even just getting about 50% of the gaming positions are available to in a casino. Like one half of like your table games are available, required to wear masks. Some casinos are only masked at the table games and not elsewhere, but some require masks for everyone, both guests and the staff. And taking the temperature when people come in, you just got to give a lot of assurances that just extensive disinfecting and sanitizing going on. But we took about a 21%. Downturn in revenue during that 11 weeks that we were closed, and that has that ripple effect that I alluded to earlier with the Buy Iowa First program, the charitable contributions, the amount of taxes that go to the state. We furloughed maybe like 8,000 employees. Some were able to get the PPP loans if they were under 500 employees, but so just a lot of things were swirling through that. But to get an industry back up and going, we're excited to be up and going again. Hopefully. Kind of get the traction back with, of course, all the protocols and procedures that we need and should have in place at this time.
Well, when the reopen was announced, I looked at it and I said, okay, this is just George looking at it. I said, the thing to watch here are the employees, because lots of people come, lots of people go. Tracking isn't very good. Whether or not they get sick, you'll never know. The employees are because they're there all the time and they're in contact with all of these people. And if there's a problem with this, it'll be found in your workforce. Have you encountered any of that yet?
Really haven't seen that at this point, George. And just you pray every day. I mean, as in any business or any place that you or I or anyone doesn't contract this and test positive. And so I think there's just the extensive efforts that are being put forth, for testing. Not testing, but I mean just taking the employees' temperatures, and if somebody is not feeling well, don't come to work that day or for that time if you're not feeling well. And if there's some of the symptoms, go get tested and to determine. And so there's those kind of things are ongoing on a daily basis. And so far, so good. And that's all we have to hope and pray that the kind of protocols and procedures in place will continue on. Because you have to have the assurance of the staff to be able to do that, and with their counterparts even, but also then for the patrons to come in to know and feel safe being there for that entertainment experience.
Yeah, the patrons, and my heart goes out to the employees, because I'm a real lefty, as you know, Wes. And when that CARES package was announced, and they shot all that money at the trillions of dollars that went to the top multinational corporations instead of going down to these employees in the form of support and UBI and that type of thing, I thought, my God, those people have got to go back to work. I mean, they've got to have incomes. They've got mortgages. They've got health care that they need. I mean, they're going to have to go back into the workforce, and let's hope that they don't get sick because of it. So I'm really glad to hear what you said there. And I also wanted to, the thing that I love, as I mentioned, is horse racing. Tell us about that experience. We've talked a little bit about gaming inside of the casino, but, I'm always outside. I'm on the apron when I go to the horse races. And I think, well, that's probably a little more safe out there. So what about it from a fan's perspective with the horse racing, and then also the horsemen and horsewomen themselves and the jockeys and all that?
Well, it's my understanding that there's limited access. I mean, if somebody's in the winner's circle, you used to have those photos. I don't believe they can do that anymore right now. I mean, at some point in time, and just even getting all the horses in coming from all over the country, and the groomers and all the people that follow that. There was a major concern about that. To reopen the back of the track and get the horses back. That occurred, but you need about 3 weeks. To get the horse in, get them, up and going. They're athletes. Those horses are, and having them, ready to go on the race. So that takes about 3 weeks, and then to get these races going. I think it's going okay. I really haven't determined. I haven't paid attention to that part, quite frankly, George, to know, because it's just been started here in the last couple of weeks. But people like yourself that love to watch the races. Unfortunately, there is the simulcast version if to not come out. And I'm not sure about being able to go down on the apron, and how many people are allowed to be out there, the social distancing, all those things are in play. But Prairie Meadows is very proactive with all that and accommodating and making sure that the proper protocols and procedures are put in place.
I got this buddy of mine, Alex. He's been on the podcast before, and he's one of your biggest fans out there. I mean, I know he's been out there, and if there was a problem at all, I know I would have heard about it personally from Alex. So it's got to be going great. And as you mentioned, these horses are athletes, and again, I can't encourage people enough. If you ever get a chance to go to the horse races, I mean, I'd go out there and see it. I mean, honest to God, it really is a spectacle. You don't have to bet them at all. Just look at these wonderful muscled athletes. They're animals, but still they're doing what they were bred to do. They're doing what they love to do. I mean, it's a glorious experience, and it's in the evening by and large, and it's in the outdoors, and I really like it. Now, I'll gamble too. I'll go in the casino. I play a little blackjack. My advice to people on that is they got a card when you go into a casino that tells you how to play blackjack. Follow that card. I mean, that's the best.
Stay to the basics.
Stay to the basics. It really does work. Craps, oh man, I'm telling you, I love to shoot craps, but I haven't figured it out yet. You can lose a lot of money fast playing craps, so you might want to take that cautiously. Anybody can bet red on a roulette wheel. I mean, there's things like that you can do, and I caution everybody, use good common sense, but it is a lot of fun, and nobody likes it more than I do. But I said nobody hates to lose more than I do either. So that's kind of my stop check on the whole thing. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Wes, and I asked some of the basics. Is there anything you want to say here in closing that I might not have asked, or something that you'd like for people to go away thinking about when it goes to Iowa gaming?
Well, I'm just doing what you just said lastly there about, we are premier entertainment destinations, and continued research shows that about 98% of the people can go to the casino for the fun and entertainment it's tend to be. They bet with their head, not over it. They, have a budget that's discretionary dollars earmarked for that. We have extensive programs in place for those that don't, but really it is, something that everybody has certain things that they love. And I think that's the fact that, there is so many different choices, from horse racing to whether it's blackjack or occasional craps or the slots, or some don't enjoy that. But when we can get back to doing concerts and some various things, and just, the food, you got great restaurants and the variety of things. So we just encourage people to come out and if there's something they've enjoyed to do, don't be hesitant to do so. We feel that we've established all the protocols and procedures to make it a rewarding experience and a safe one, and that's the most important thing right now during this COVID times.
Yeah, and if that changes, of course, we'll let everybody know. And of course, you're, the Iowa Gaming Commission and overseeing all of these casino operations statewide. I focused a lot on Prairie Meadows, but one thing I didn't mention, this is being recorded on the the weekend of the 4th of July. They got spectacular fireworks. I mean, God, they got world-class fireworks shows out there, and you're doing that this year.
Yeah, Prairie Meadows is electing to do that. I believe one change because people can, it's a great viewing area. You don't have to necessarily even be on the grounds, but even around the parking. But for being on the apron, they're charging $20, a $20 ticket this year. Kind of a unique thing. If you want to be right down close and have these things thundering above your head and have the if you will, but that's just so they don't have people packed in like normally would be the case, several thousand. I've been there, part of that, where you have, and it's just what an experience. They're right there, and one of the better ones in certainly the metro and probably the state. They make it spectacular to celebrate our independence and our freedom, if you will, for that weekend. So they're going to be doing that, right? But a lot of places you can view it for free or buy a ticket and go out onto the apron.
Yeah, they ought to call that ground zero ticket. If you want to be at the epicenter
right
of the
there.
earthquake, you can pay that extra $20, and I'm sure for some folks it's well worth it. Well, that's great. Again, thanks for coming on Podcast by George, Wes.
George, my pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Folks, that's Wes Ericke. He's the president and the CEO of the Iowa Gaming Association. They're under reopen, if you want to call it that. So far, so good. Cross your fingers, hold your breath. Things seem to be going all right out there. If that changes, I'm sure our old buddy, our old pal, Wes, will let us know. But that's going to do it for today. That's going to wrap it up. And again, check us out on YouTube, follow us on iTunes, and see us on Facebook and all of those various platforms where podcasts are seen and heard. But for right now, folks, that's another podcast by George.